Our towns have been virtually obliterated. Tens of thousands of people are homeless. A massive rescue operation underway tonight after a powerful earthquake struck the heart of Italy, leaving at least 90 people dead. The quake hit in the middle of the night just northeast of Rome, causing widespread damage. Houses, churches and historic buildings have collapsed, trapping people beneath the rubble. The Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has declared a state of emergency. Here's James Blake.
This man had been trapped for 3 hours before the rescue teams reached him. Like the rest of the town, he'd been fast asleep when the earthquake hit. He emerges stunned. It's only when someone hugs him that he breaks down in tears. Still half naked, he's helped away from the mound of rubble that used to be his home. One survivor among so many dead. It was 3:30 in the morning when these buildings started shaking, the tremors lasting 30 seconds. People simply didn't have time to get outside before their homes collapsed. The rescue effort is slow and agonizing. The debris can only be moved by hand, because there are still signs of life underneath.
There's a girl who's stuck, but it's hard to work out where she actually is, because there's a tiny hole through which we can talk. We have to remove everything on top: beams, roofs, rubble.
Last night was like the end of the world. The building was rocking. You couldn't walk.
Everything is destroyed. Our house has gone.
As the sun rose, the people of L'Aquila could see just how their 13th century medieval city had been transformed and devastated. As the ground shifted, cars were swallowed up in huge craters. Thousands of buildings have been declared unsafe and off limits. More than 50,000 people have lost their homes. They wait now to be taken to tourist hotels along the coast. The hospital overflowed within hours. Doctors have set up makeshift operating theatres in the street to treat the wounded. The Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi says he doesn't know how many people have died.
On the number of dead, the agencies have said we are now over 50 dead, but I think there will be more. We have created a morgue, and don't make me repeat the number of dead again, because I hope they stop here, but I don't really think that is the case.
The quake struck at 3:32 a.m. in the Abruzzo mountainous region, 60 miles northeast of Rome. The epicenter was around 10 kilometers north of L'Aquila in the Gran Sasso Natural Park. According to the US Geological Survey, the 6.3 magnitude quake had a depth of just over 6 miles and was felt across central parts of Italy. Earthquakes are caused by the movement of tectonic plates which make up the Earth's crust. Italy sits on the Eurasian and African plates, which cut across the spine of the Apennine Mountains. Given its position, Italy has suffered several earthquakes in the past, including one in September 1997, which destroyed priceless artwork and buildings in Urbino and Assisi, including part of the Basilica of St. Francis. According to officials, this earthquake has partially damaged several Renaissance churches. Across Tuscany and central Italy, this quake has claimed lives and destroyed towns and villages. The shockwaves were even felt in Rome, where the parliament held a minute's silence. This evening, emergency workers from across Italy have converged on L'Aquila to continue the desperate search for survivors. This town is now full of the displaced, the homeless and the grieving, all in a state of shock after Italy's worst earthquake in 30 years.
James Blake. Well, I'm joined now by Professor Bob Holdsworth, who's part of the UK-based team of scientists heading out to L'Aquila. Professor, thanks for being with us. What do you hope to achieve?
Well, the team are going out. I'm not actually personally going out, but the team are going out hopefully on Wednesday. They've been studying a series of huge tears in the Earth's surface which have been formed by the historical activity along the many faults that run down the Apennine chain. And they've been using sophisticated laser scanners to collect essentially like a three-dimensional photocopy of these fault surfaces. And by combining that information with information about the age of the geological units that are being offset and some sophisticated modelling, they're reconstructing the movement histories along these scarps. And as we understand better the way that the faults have moved over the last 200,000 years, it allows us to actually see how these structures are interacting and therefore hopefully better predict the ways, where the next earthquakes are going to be, the high-risk areas.
And that, Professor, is the holy grail, isn't it? We're still not that near to the art of prediction, but that's the path towards it?
It's one of the paths. The important point, I think, to emphasise is that you cannot use any single technique to predict earthquakes, and indeed you can't predict earthquakes precisely. You need to use a range of techniques. The techniques that our team are going to be employing, together with workers from the University of Edinburgh and UCL Birkbeck, are just one of the tools in the armoury, if you like.
And in this area, we know it's prone to earthquakes. We've had the earthquake in Naples, of course, and we had the big one, 1980 that was, and we've had the earthquake in Assisi much more recently since then. Are we, if we can't predict, are we building our way towards greater safety in terms of building design?
Well, there's no doubt that we can do it because the Japanese have done it very, very successfully. It is possible to produce your buildings so that they're more resistant to earthquake damage than can otherwise be the case. The problem, though, of course, is that that requires money and it requires investment and forward thinking. And when your budgets are restricted and in areas that are perhaps not necessarily major population centres, there may be a temptation to cut corners with regard to the funding. And certainly, as has been shown in a number of recent major earthquakes, particularly the Chinese earthquakes a few months ago, where the money hasn't been spent and the buildings haven't been created, the results can often be catastrophic.
Professor Bob Holdsworth in Newcastle, thanks very much indeed for being with us. And in the past hour, some new picture has emerged of the damage in surrounding villages that were also badly affected by the quake. In the village of Ona, 24 people were killed, according to the Italian news agency ANSA. In another village of about 300 people, 5 deaths have been confirmed.